Ethan Parker had always liked quiet nights. After years of working stressful jobs in crowded cities, he finally moved into a peaceful neighborhood outside Chicago, where nothing dramatic ever happened. Most evenings looked exactly the same. A cup of coffee, soft music playing in the background, laptop open on the kitchen table, and rain tapping gently against the windows. That night started no differently. The storm outside had been building for hours. Dark clouds covered the sky while thunder rolled across the neighborhood like distant explosions. Ethan sat alone in his living room, reviewing blueprints for a construction project while an old jazz playlist played softly nearby. He liked silence, he liked routine, and most of all, he liked staying far away from other people's problems, especially rich people's problems. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. At exactly 11:43 at night, a sudden knock echoed through his house. Ethan frowned immediately. Nobody visited this. Late, another knock came louder this time. He stood slowly, setting his coffee mug on the table before walking toward the front door. The second he opened it, cold rain blew inside, and standing there, completely soaked, was Olivia Bennett. Ethan blinked in surprise. Olivia lived next door with her mother in one of the largest homes on Maple Street. Everyone in town knew who the Bennett family was. Billionaires, owners of Bennett Holdings, one of the most powerful real estate companies in Illinois. But despite living next door for almost a year, Ethan and Olivia barely spoke more than a few polite greetings. Still, even from those short conversations, he knew one thing. Olivia Bennett never looked weak, until now rain dripped from her dark hair onto the porch floor while her mascara had slightly run beneath her eyes. Her hands trembled as she gripped her purse tightly, and the fear on her face instantly told Ethan something was very wrong. Olivia. His voice softened slightly. What, happened? For a moment, she didn't answer. She simply looked behind her into the dark, rainy street like she expected someone to appear from the shadows. Then finally, she looked back at him. I need your help. Ethan stepped aside immediately. Come in before you freeze. Olivia entered quickly while Ethan closed the door behind her. Inside the warm house, she wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stop shaking. Ethan grabbed a towel from the kitchen and handed it to her. Thanks. You want coffee? She nodded quietly. While Ethan prepared another cup, he kept glancing toward her from across the kitchen. Something about tonight felt strange, dangerous. Even Olivia Bennett looked like someone running from a nightmare. When he handed her the coffee mug, their fingers brushed slightly. Her hands were ice cold. Ethan sat across from her in the living room. Okay, tell me what's going on. Olivia stared down into the coffee for several long seconds. Then finally she whispered the last thing Ethan expected to hear. I need a husband by Friday. Silence filled the room. Thunder crashed outside. Ethan honestly thought he heard her wrong. I'm sorry, what? She looked up at him seriously. I need to get married before Friday. Ethan stared at her, waiting for a smile, a laugh, anything, but none came. You're serious? Yes. He leaned back slowly, running a hand through his hair. Olivia, it's Tuesday night. I know. And you came to my house because I want you to marry me. Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. For several seconds, he just stared at her in disbelief. Out of all the possible problems he imagined tonight, this was nowhere on the list. You cannot be serious. I am completely serious. Ethan stood and started pacing across the room. No, absolutely not. Please just listen first. This sounds insane. It is insane. Ethan stopped walking. Then why are we talking about? Olivia took a deep, shaky breath. My grandfather died last month. Ethan's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry. He left me control of Bennett Holdings. That's a pretty big inheritance. There's one condition. Ethan crossed his arms. What condition? Olivia looked embarrassed, even saying it aloud. If I'm not legally married by Friday, the company goes to my uncle Victor. Ethan frowned immediately. Even he knew Victor Bennett's reputation. Cold, manipulative, ruthless. The kind of businessman who destroyed competitors without mercy. Why would your grandfather make a condition like that? Because he believed family people make safer leaders. And you don't have anyone else. Olivia laughed bitterly. You'd be amazed how quickly people disappear when lawyers and billion-dollar companies become involved. Ethan could understand that money complicated everything. Still, this entire idea felt ridiculous. You barely know me? I know enough. No, you really don't. Olivia looked directly into his eyes. I know you're honest. Ethan almost laughed. You figured that out from waving at me across the driveway. You helped my mother last winter. When she collapsed in the garden. Ethan paused. He remembered that day clearly. Snow covered the neighborhood while Claire Bennett suddenly fainted outside. Ethan had rushed over, immediately calling an ambulance and staying with her until help arrived. It wasn't a big deal. It was to me. Her voice became softer now. Most people around us only care about our money. Ethan looked away uncomfortably. He hated emotional conversations. Olivia, even if I wanted to help fake. Marriages don't actually work in real life. It wouldn't stay fake forever. That made him look back at her immediately. What does that mean? The inheritance lawyers require the marriage to last at least 6 months. Ethan stared at her again in shock. 6 months. I know it's a lot to ask. A lot. He laughed nervously. That's the understatement of the year. Olivia stood from the couch and walked toward the window anxiously. Outside, rain hammered against the glass while lightning briefly illuminated the street. My uncle cannot take control of that company, Ethan. What happens if he does? She hesitated before answering. He'll destroy my mother. Ethan frowned. What do you mean? My mother has expensive medical treatments. Victor already said the company should stop paying for them. That's evil. Yes. For the first time all night, Ethan saw tears filling her eyes. I don't care about the money, I care about protecting her. That changed something inside him because suddenly this no longer sounded like some spoiled billionaire problem. It sounded real, painfully real. Still marrying someone he barely knew felt completely reckless. You should call a lawyer. I already did. And they suggested finding someone trustworthy. Ethan shook his head. And somehow you landed on me. Olivia gave a small nervous smile. You're the only man I trust right now. Before Ethan could answer, Olivia suddenly froze. Her eyes locked onto the window behind him. Fear instantly returned to her face. Ethan turned slowly. Bright headlights glowed outside through the rain. A black luxury car rolled slowly to a stop across the street. The engine remained running. Olivia whispered quietly. Oh no! Ethan stood immediately. Who is that? But deep down he already knew. The rear passenger door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, holding a black umbrella. Even from a distance, his expensive suit and cold posture were impossible to miss Victor Bennett. Olivia grabbed Ethan's arm tightly. You can't let him see me. Why? Because if he knows I'm here, everything gets worse. A sudden loud knock echoed through the house again, this time stronger, more aggressive. Ethan looked toward the front door while Olivia's breathing became uneven beside him. Another knock came. Then another. Victor Bennett clearly wasn't leaving. Ethan glanced back at Olivia Rainwater, still clung to her hair while fear filled her eyes completely now. And in that moment, Ethan realized something important. Whatever game the Bennett family was playing, it was far more dangerous than he originally thought. The knocking continued through the house, slow, heavy, patient. Like someone completely confident they would eventually get what they wanted. Ethan took a deep breath and walked toward the door, not knowing that opening it would completely change his life forever. The knocking did not stop. It grew heavier with every second, like someone outside had all the time in the world. And absolutely no fear of being ignored. Ethan Parker stood near the front door, feeling something he rarely felt, uneasiness behind him. Olivia Bennett was frozen in place, still soaked from the rain, her hands gripping the edge of her shirt tightly. Don't open it, she whispered again, her voice shaking. Ethan did not respond immediately. Instead, he moved closer to the door and looked through the peephole. What he saw made his expression harden. Victor Bennett stood outside in the rain holding a black umbrella, his expensive suit perfectly clean despite the storm. His face showed no anger, no panic, only calm control. The kind of calm that made people feel smaller just by looking at it. Ethan stepped back slowly. "It's your uncle." Olivia closed her eyes for a second as if hearing it made everything worse. "He found me faster than I thought." Another loud knock hit the door. This time Ethan opened it slightly but did not fully expose the inside of the house. Cold rain and wind rushed in immediately. Victor Bennett smiled politely as if he was visiting a friend. "Good evening, Ethan Parker." Ethan stayed firm in the doorway. "Mr. Bennett, it's late." Victor glanced past him into the house and immediately spotted Olivia standing behind Ethan. His smile faded just a little. "There you are, Olivia." Olivia did not answer. She stepped back instinctively. Victor tilted his head slightly. "Your mother has been worried sick you left without answering any calls." Olivia finally spoke, her voice sharp but nervous. "I'm not going back tonight." Victor gave a soft, amused laugh. "Of course you are." Ethan felt the tension rise between them like electricity before a storm. Victor's eyes shifted to Ethan. "And who exactly is this?" Before Ethan could respond, Olivia suddenly stepped forward and placed her hand lightly on Ethan's arm. It was not natural. It was not casual. It was a signal. "I told you already," she said firmly. "This is my fiancé." The word hit the air like a shockwave. Ethan turned his head slightly toward her. Fiancé Victor blinked once. Then he smiled again, but this time it was colder eye. Silence stretched between all three of them. Only the sound of rain filled the moment. Victor slowly looked Ethan up and down. "You work with architecture, correct?" "Yes," Ethan answered carefully. Interesting career choice for someone suddenly engaged to a Bennett heir. Olivia tightened her grip on Ethan's arm, slightly. Ethan understood immediately. She needed him to stay in character. Victor continued calmly. "When exactly is the wedding?" "Friday," Olivia answered quickly. Victor raised an eyebrow. "That is very soon." Ethan finally spoke again. "We don't need approval from anyone." Victor's eyes sharpened slightly. "Of course not." Then he smiled again, but this time there was something dangerous behind it. "Congratulations." Then, the words sounded fake even in the rain. Victor took a slow step back. "I will not disturb your evening any longer." He paused briefly, then looked directly at Olivia. "But remember this." Olivia Bennett. His voice lowered slightly. "Families like ours do not lose control easily." For a moment nobody moved. Then Victor turned and walked back toward his car. The umbrella disappeared into the rain. The black luxury car started and slowly drove away into the darkness. Only then did Ethan close the door. The silence inside the house felt heavier than the storm outside. Olivia immediately let go of his arm and stepped back. "I'm sorry I had to do that." Ethan turned toward her. "You just told your uncle I'm your fiancé." It was the only way he would leave. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, slowly processing everything. "You realize what this means, right?" Olivia looked at him carefully. "Yes." "No, you don't," Ethan said firmly. "Now he is going to investigate me." Olivia nodded. "I know. And your entire family is going to think I'm part of your world." "I know. And people like him do not just accept things like this." Olivia's voice softened. "I know, Ethan." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The rain outside started to slow down, but tension inside the house only grew stronger. Ethan walked toward the kitchen and poured himself a glass of water, trying to calm down. "This is insane." Olivia followed him slowly. "I didn't plan for any of this to happen." Ethan turned around. "Then why me, Olivia?" She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "Because I need someone who is not connected to my world." "That's not a reason to get married. It is when your entire inheritance depends on." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, then leaned against the counter. "Explain the inheritance again." Olivia took a breath. "My grandfather left control of Bennett Holdings to me." "Okay, but only if I am legally married by Friday. And if you are not?" It goes to Victor. Ethan nodded slowly. And what happens after that? Olivia looked down. He changes everything. Like what? Jobs get cut, contracts get destroyed, and my mother loses medical coverage. Ethan stopped. Moving that last part changed everything. So this is not about money. Olivia shook her head. It is about survival. Ethan exhaled slowly. The situation suddenly felt heavier than he first thought. He sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. You are asking me to become your husband in less than 3 days. Yes, and stay married for 6 months after that. Yes, and pretend in front of your entire family, your uncle and the media. Yes, Ethan looked up at her. That is not a normal request, Olivia. I know. A long silence followed. Olivia sat down across from him again. For the first time, she looked less like a billionaire heir and more like someone exhausted from running. Ethan spoke quietly. You understand what people will say about me, right? Olivia nodded. They will call you a gold digger. Exactly. I will handle that. Ethan gave a small laugh. That is easy for you to say. Olivia leaned forward slightly. I will protect you from my family, Ethan. That is not what I am worried about. Then what are you worried about? Ethan looked at her directly. I am worried about getting trapped in something I cannot walk away from. Olivia stayed silent for a moment. Then she spoke, softly. You can walk away after 6 months. Ethan raised an eyebrow, and you really think it will be that simple? Olivia did not answer immediately, because deep down she knew it would not be. Another knock sounded at the door. Suddenly, both of them froze again. Ethan stood slowly. But this time Olivia grabbed his wrist. Don't open it. Ethan looked at her. Is it him again? She shook her head. No, worse. Ethan frowned. Worse than your uncle. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. On the table, Ethan picked it up. A news notification appeared on the screen. Bennett heiress spotted with unknown man outside family estate. Under it was a blurry photo. Olivia holding Ethan's arm in the rain from earlier. Ethan slowly looked up at her. This is already public. Olivia closed her eyes. He is faster than I thought. Ethan stared at the phone again, and then quietly said, so this fake marriage is no longer fake. Olivia met his eyes. No, it is not. Outside, the rain finally stopped. But inside, Ethan Parker's life had already started changing in a way he could never undo. Morning arrived slowly over Maple Street, but for Ethan Parker there was no real rest that night. He had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Victor Bennett standing in the rain, and every time he opened them, he saw Olivia's frightened face. Now his quiet home no longer felt quiet at all. Outside, things had gotten worse. Much worse. Reporters had appeared overnight like they had been waiting for permission. Black vans lined the street, cameras pointed toward his house from every direction. And every few minutes, someone shouted his name through the gate. Ethan stood behind his living room curtains, watching everything unfold. This is unbelievable, he muttered. Olivia Bennett stood behind him, holding a cup of untouched coffee. They will not leave until they get answers. Ethan turned toward her. What answers? She looked uncomfortable. About us. Ethan let out a tired breath. There is no us. Olivia did not respond immediately. That silence said everything before either of them could speak further. The doorbell rang again. Ethan frowned. That's the 5th time in an hour. Olivia nodded. It will not stop. He walked toward the door cautiously and opened it slightly. A reporter immediately shoved a microphone forward. Ethan Parker. Are you secretly engaged to Olivia Bennett? Ethan immediately closed the door. That is insane. Olivia gave a small, nervous smile. Welcome to my life. Ethan stepped back, shaking his head. This is not your life anymore. This is our problem now. Olivia looked down, and for a second Ethan noticed something different in her expression. Guilt, fear, and something heavier underneath before he could ask. A sharp knock came again. This time it was not reporters. It was someone else. Ethan opened the door carefully. A woman stood outside, 50, tired eyes, expensive but simple coat, and a face that looked like it carried too many memories. Are you Ethan Parker? Yes, her eyes softened slightly. I am Claire Bennett. Olivia froze instantly behind him. Mom, Ethan stepped aside quickly. Please come in. Claire Bennett entered slowly as if the house reminded her of something painful. The moment she saw Olivia, she rushed forward and hugged her tightly. I told you not to do anything alone. Olivia closed her eyes for a moment. I did not have a choice. Claire pulled back and studied her face, then looked at Ethan. So you are the man. Ethan felt slightly awkward. Yes, ma'am. Claire nodded slowly. You are nothing like what I expected. Ethan frowned slightly. And what did you expect? A businessman, someone connected to my world. Ethan shook his head. I am not connected to any of this. Claire sighed and sat down on the couch. That might be why you are in danger now. Ethan exchanged a look with Olivia. Danger. Claire looked serious now. You need to understand something about Victor Bennett. Olivia crossed her arms. We already do know. Claire interrupted firmly. You know who he is, but you do not know what he is capable of. The room fell silent. Claire continued. Years ago, your father worked for Bennett Holdings. Ethan immediately straightened. My father died when I was young. I know. Olivia looked confused. What does that have to do with anything? Claire took a deep breath. Your father discovered financial fraud inside the company. Ethan felt his chest tighten. What kind of fraud? Millions. In stolen investments, hidden accounts, illegal transfers. Olivia looked shocked. Victor, Claire nodded slowly. He was involved. Ethan stepped back slightly. That is impossible. It is not. Claire's voice grew heavier. Your father planned to expose him. Ethan felt like the room had suddenly become colder. And then what happened? Claire looked down for a moment. 3 weeks later, your father died in a car accident. Silence. Heavy silence. Ethan stared at her, trying to process the words. Olivia spoke softly. You think it was not an accident? Claire looked directly at Ethan. I think Victor Bennett removed a threat. Ethan felt his hands tighten. That is a serious accusation. I know. Olivia stepped closer. To Ethan, I did not know any of this. Ethan looked at her. Did your family ever tell you about my father? Olivia shook her head. No. Ethan turned away slowly. So many years, so many unanswered questions, and now suddenly, everything was connecting. Claire reached into her bag and pulled out an old photograph. She placed it on the table. Ethan picked it up slowly. It was his father, standing next to Victor Bennett. Both smiling at a company event. Ethan's voice dropped. This is fake, right? Claire shook her head. No, that is real. Olivia leaned in. Then what changed? Claire's expression darkened. Power. She paused. Victor changed after your father started questioning him. Ethan looked at the photo again. I do not understand why you are telling me this now. Claire looked at both of them. Because Victor is not just fighting you for the company, Olivia. Olivia frowned. What do you mean? He knows Ethan is involved now. Ethan looked up sharply. That makes no sense. I have nothing to do with Bennett Holdings. Claire shook her head. Your father does. The words hit him hard. My father is dead. Yes, but his past is not. Claire leaned forward. Victor believes you are here for revenge. Ethan immediately shook his head. That is insane. I did not even know any of this until today. Olivia looked between them. Then why would Victor target Ethan? Claire hesitated, then spoke carefully. Because he is afraid Ethan might discover what really happened. The night your father died, Ethan felt a strange pressure in his chest. What really happened? Claire did not answer immediately. Instead, she stood up. I should not have come here like this. Olivia grabbed her arm. Mom, you cannot leave us. Like this. Claire looked at her daughter. You are already involved, Olivia. There is no going back. She turned toward Ethan, and now neither is he. Before Ethan could respond, Claire walked toward the door, but stopped before leaving. One more thing. Both Ethan and Olivia looked at her. The marriage plan you created. Ethan frowned. Yes. Claire's voice lowered. It is no longer fake. She left before either of them could respond. The door closed heavily behind her. Silence returned. Through the house, Ethan stood still for a long moment. Olivia spoke softly. Ethan, I did not know about your father. He did not respond immediately. Then finally, I believe you. She looked relieved for a second. But that does not change anything, Olivia. Frowned. What do you mean? Ethan turned toward her. It means Victor is not just protecting his company anymore. Olivia went silent. He is protecting himself. Outside the house, a car engine started again. Ethan walked to the window. The same. Black luxury car from before parked across the street. Victor Bennett was watching again. Ethan slowly stepped back. He is not going to stop. Olivia joined him at the window. Then we do not stop either. Ethan looked at her. This started as a fake marriage? Olivia nodded. Yes, he continued. Now it feels like a war. Olivia met his eyes, then we survive it together. For the first time, Ethan did not disagree. Outside, the world was watching. Inside the house, everything had already changed, and somewhere in the silence between them, the fake marriage had started becoming something neither of them was ready to name. Friday arrived with an unusual silence over Maple Street. No rain, no thunder. Just a strange, heavy calm that felt more dangerous than any storm. Ethan Parker stood in front of the mirror inside a luxury hotel room downtown Chicago, adjusting his tie for the third time. He did not belong here. Everything around him screamed money, power, and control. Marble floors, golden chandeliers, expensive guests, moving through the halls like they owned the world. And today he was supposed to become part of it somehow. A knock came at the door. Ethan opened it and saw Olivia Bennett standing there. For a moment he forgot how to speak. She wore a simple white dress, not overly decorated but elegant enough to silence a room. Her hair was perfectly styled, but her eyes carried something very different. Fear mixed with determination. You ready? She asked softly. Ethan gave a small, tired smile. As ready as someone can be when they are about to fake marry a billionaire. Olivia almost smiled, but it faded quickly. It is not just fake anymore. Ethan looked at her carefully. What do you mean? She stepped inside and closed the door behind her. Victor knows everything is happening today. Ethan crossed his arms. Of course. He does. And he will try something. Ethan sighed. Then we are prepared for it. Olivia shook her head. You do not understand, Ethan. This is not business for him anymore. This is personal. Ethan looked down for a moment. It has been personal since the night he showed up at my house. A short silence followed. Then Olivia spoke quietly. If anything goes wrong today, do not trust anyone except me. Ethan raised an eyebrow. That includes your own family. Olivia nodded. Slowly, yes. That answer alone made the situation even more serious. Downstairs, the wedding hall was already filling with guests. Reporters were outside trying to get in, but security was strict. This was not a small ceremony. It was a high society. Event billionaires, politicians, business leaders all watching, waiting and judging. Ethan walked into the ballroom with Olivia beside him. Instantly, cameras started flashing. Whispers spread through the crowd. That is him, the architect. He looks normal, too normal for her. Ethan ignored everything and focused on breathing. Olivia leaned slightly closer. Do not react to anything. I am trying not to exist right now. She gave a small, nervous laugh. That is good. At the front of the hall, Victor Bennett sat in the first row. Perfect suit, calm expression. Like he was attending a performance he already knew the ending of. Ethan noticed him immediately. Their eyes met. Victor gave a small, polite smile. Ethan did not smile back. The ceremony began. Music filled the hall, guests stood, and Olivia began walking down the aisle. Ethan watched her approach slowly. For a second, everything around him faded. The crowd, the cameras, the tension. All of it disappeared. It was just her walking toward him. And something about that moment felt strangely real. Too real for something fake. When she finally reached him, Ethan whispered, You okay? Olivia nodded. Just do not let go of my hand. The minister began speaking. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. But before he could continue, The doors at the back of the hall suddenly slammed open. The entire room turned. A group of police officers entered the ballroom. Gasps filled the crowd instantly. Guests stepped back in confusion. The music stopped. Ethan's expression hardened immediately. Olivia whispered, "No." An officer walked forward holding a folder. "I need to speak to Ethan Parker." Whispers exploded through the room. Ethan stepped slightly forward. "That is me." The officer opened the file. "You are under arrest for financial fraud and unauthorized transfers linked to Bennett Holdings." The entire ballroom went silent. Olivia immediately stepped in front of Ethan. "This is a mistake." The officer continued, "We have evidence of multiple transactions under his name involving stolen corporate funds." Ethan looked completely shocked. "I have never seen those accounts in my life." Victor Bennett slowly stood. From his seat, for the first time all day, his expression changed slightly. Not fear, but satisfaction. He spoke calmly. "This is disappointing, Olivia." Olivia turned toward him immediately. "You did this." Victor raised his hand slightly. "I have no idea what you are talking about," but Ethan could see it clearly now. This was planned. Olivia grabbed the documents from the officer and scanned them quickly. "These signatures are fake." The officer frowned. "We will investigate that." Victor stepped forward. "Olivia, stop this nonsense. You are making a scene." She turned sharply toward him. "You framed him." Victor sighed like she was being unreasonable. "I am trying to protect the company from criminals." Ethan suddenly felt everything click together. This was not just about inheritance. It was about removing him completely before he could be arrested. Olivia grabbed his hand tightly. "Wait." She turned toward the officer. "Check the digital records again." The officer paused. "What?" Ethan suddenly pulled out his phone. "I have something you should see." He opened a folder Claire Bennett had sent him earlier that morning. Bank records, hidden transfers, internal emails, and one name repeated again. And again, Victor Bennett. The officer took the phone slowly and started reading. As he continued, his expression changed. Slowly, then completely. He looked up. "Where did you get this?" Ethan answered calmly. "From someone who has been watching. Victor, longer than you have." Victor's face tightened for the first time. "That is illegal evidence." The officer looked at Victor now. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Silence. Then chaos. Guests began talking loudly. Reporters outside pressed harder against the doors. Security moved quickly. Victor looked at Ethan for the first time without control in his eyes. "This is not over." Ethan stepped forward slightly. "It is today." Olivia held Ethan's hand tighter as officers moved toward Victor. For the first time, Victor Bennett looked uncertain. Not defeated yet, but no longer untouchable. As he was escorted out, he turned his head one last time. "You think this ends here?" Ethan answered calmly. "No, I think this is where it begins." Victor was taken away. The ballroom slowly quieted down. Guests were still shocked, reporters still shouting outside. But inside the center of the room, Ethan and Olivia stood holding hands. The minister slowly stepped forward. Again awkwardly, "Should I continue?" Olivia looked at Ethan. Ethan looked back at her. Neither of them spoke for a moment. Then Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "We might as well finish what we started." Olivia nodded softly. "Yes." The ceremony resumed. But this time everything felt different. Not fake, not forced. Something in between truth and survival. When the minister finally spoke the final words, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The room erupted in mixed reactions, but Ethan and Olivia barely heard it, because in that moment they were not thinking about inheritance anymore, or Victor, or the cameras. They were only thinking about the fact that everything had changed, and there was no going back anymore. 3 months had passed since the wedding that was never supposed to be real, but somehow became the most real thing in Ethan Parker's life. Maple Street looked the same from the outside, Quiet streets, familiar houses, soft evening light falling over the neighborhood. But inside Ethan's world, everything had changed completely. Victor Bennett was gone from public life now, officially under investigation for fraud and corruption. The media had moved on to newer scandals, and for the first time in months, Ethan could walk outside without cameras chasing him. But peace did not feel simple anymore. Not after everything that had happened. Ethan sat on his porch one evening holding a cup of coffee, watching the sunset slowly cover the street. In warm orange light, the same routine he once loved. But now it felt different because he was not alone anymore. Footsteps approached from the side of the house. He already knew who it was before looking. Olivia Bennett. No longer just the girl who knocked on his door in the rain. Now legally his wife. She walked up carrying a small paper bag. "You missed dinner again," she said softly. Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "I was working on designs." Olivia sat down beside him on the wooden steps. "You always say that. That is because it is always true." She opened the bag and pulled out a slice of pie. "I brought food anyway." Ethan looked at her. "You do realize you are still a billionaire heir, right? You do not need I to personally deliver me pie?" Olivia smiled slightly. "I like it." That simple answer made him pause because it sounded too normal, too real. For a moment they just sat there in silence, watching the sky change colors. Life after the trial had been complicated. Victor Bennett had been arrested officially after overwhelming evidence from multiple sources, including Claire Bennett and Ethan's recovered files. The company had been temporarily placed under court supervision, and Olivia had finally gained control of her inheritance. But none of that felt like victory. Not fully, because something else had changed too. The agreement, the fake marriage, was no longer fake, and neither of them had talked about what came next. Olivia broke the silence. 6 months are almost over." Ethan nodded slowly. "Yeah." Another pause. The air between them felt heavier than it should have. Olivia looked down at the wooden steps. "So, after that, we just—" She stopped. Ethan finished the sentence quietly. "Go back to being strangers." Olivia did not answer immediately. That silence said enough. Ethan leaned back slightly. "That was the plan, right?" "It was supposed to be. But it does not feel like it anymore." Ethan said honestly. Olivia looked at him now, her expression softer than usual. "No, it does not." A long silence followed again. The sound of distant cars passing through the neighborhood filled the space between them. Ethan finally spoke. "What happens to the company now?" Olivia sighed. "It is stable for now. The board is still watching everything closely." "And you?" She gave a small, tired smile. "I am still trying to figure out who I am without fighting for survival every day." Ethan nodded slowly. "That sounds peaceful." "It is confusing," she corrected Ethan. Understood that more than he expected, because his own life had become confusing too. He had gone from a quiet architect to someone pulled into billion-dollar scandals, courtrooms and headlines, and now somehow he had become her husband. Olivia looked at him carefully. "Do you regret it?" Ethan knew exactly what she meant. The fake marriage, the chaos, everything. He took a moment before answering. "If I say yes, I would be lying." Olivia looked slightly surprised. "And if I say no," he looked at her directly, "then I would be admitting something is different now." Olivia's heart skipped slightly at his words, but she stayed quiet because she was afraid to interrupt whatever was happening between them. Ethan continued softly. "When you first came to my door, I thought you were just running from a problem. I was. But now—" He paused. Olivia waited. "But now I think you ran into something you did not expect." Olivia gave a small, nervous laugh. "Like what?" Ethan looked away for a moment, then back at her. "Me." That word changed the air instantly. Olivia blinked slightly, then smiled softly. "That sounds dangerous." "It probably is." Another silence. But this one was different, less heavy, more honest. Olivia leaned back on her hands, looking at the sky. You know, I never imagined my life like this. Fake marriage and court cases. Exactly, Ethan smirked slightly. Still better than being controlled by your uncle. Olivia's smile faded a little. Yeah. A pause. Then she said quietly, I think about that night a lot. Ethan looked at her. The first night. She nodded. When? I knocked on your door in the rain. Ethan remembered it clearly. She looked scared, lost, desperate. I was ready to trust anyone at that point, she admitted. Ethan nodded slowly. And somehow you chose me. Olivia turned toward him. I did, not choose you randomly. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? I chose you because you were the only person who did not look at me like a title or a bank account. That made Ethan go quiet, because he did not know how to respond to that. Olivia continued softly. You looked at me like a person. Ethan exhaled slowly. That is not something people usually notice about me. I noticed. Silence again. But this time it felt warm, comfortable, like something finally settling into place from inside the house. Ethan's phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it. Olivia glanced at it. Work. Probably. You should answer it. I do not want to. Olivia smiled. Since when do you ignore calls? Since I realized peace is rare. That made her laugh softly. A real laugh this time. Ethan watched her and realized something strange. He liked that sound, more than he should have. The sun slowly disappeared behind the horizon. Street lights began turning. On one by one, Ethan stood up and stretched slightly. I should probably get back to work. Olivia looked up. You always say that when you are avoiding emotions. Ethan pointed at her. That is not true. It is absolutely true. He sighed, fine, maybe a little. Olivia stood up too. For a moment they stood facing each other on the porch, neither speaking but neither moving away either. Then Olivia said softly, What happens when the 6 months end? Ethan looked at her. For a long moment the question they had both been avoiding. Finally he answered honestly, I do not know. Olivia nodded slowly. Me neither. Another pause. Then Ethan added, But I do know something. Olivia looked at him. What? He stepped slightly closer. That none of this felt fake for a long time. Olivia's breath caught slightly. She did not speak immediately because she felt the same thing. She had felt it for a while, but hearing it made it real. Ethan gently placed the empty coffee cup on the railing, then looked back at her. So maybe we stop calling it fake. Olivia's voice came out softer than usual. Then what do we call it? Ethan gave a small, uncertain smile. Maybe we figure that out together. For a moment, Olivia just looked at him. Then she smiled. A real smile, not forced, not scared. Just real. Okay, she said softly. And in that quiet evening on Maple Street, with the world finally calm around them, nothing dramatic happened. No reporters. No chaos, no secrets. Just two people standing a little closer than before, trying to understand what came after survival, and realizing that maybe it was something called beginning.